here, the academic year is winding down, but that's not stopping the high school administration from thinking ahead and improving overall student learning for next fall.
Plus, the latest Board of Public Works meeting discusses the Massachusetts Gaming Commission application. The details ahead.
And later, our weekly segment, Library Learning. Find out what events are coming your way.
Those stories and much more ahead on the ELCAT News Update.
Good evening, I'm Rebecca Green.
And I'm Jake Brady.
We begin tonight with the latest school committee meeting where the high school administration presented their revisions on student academic programs. These revisions were made to improve overall learning. First up, a 4-year action plan for students.
So, just to start, the first change to our program of studies is the inclusion of a 4-year action plan for our students. Something that guidance took from Peterson, and you'll see the copyright in the handout that is actually from Peterson, where it's a national approach for how students should be both approaching high school and planning for going to college. So it's about college and career readiness. So it's a step-by-step 4-year plan that the guidance department felt should be included into our program of studies.
Just one question. Do all our sophomores take a PSAT?
Not yet.
Recommended or required?
It's recommended.
Recommended.
It's recommended. They don't all take it yet. It's something we're considering looking at going into next year. That the College Board has actually encouraged us strongly to look at having our students do.
Okay.
We ran it during the school day this year, and we
it was really
increased
successful. We had
our participation by about 70 students.
Yeah.
The high school administration is determined to have students well prepared for college. This next item will shift the weight of certain classes on a student's GPA to showcase those students who take honors and AP courses.
In order to better align with how the colleges translate our GPA, we shifted to where now our standard classes also operate on a 4.0 scale like the elective classes, and then our honors classes get that 0.5 bump to a 4.5, and the AP still do get that 1 point bump up to the 5.0. So the 4.0 reflected in there is just basically saying that the standard level classes are what start at that 4.0, and then the honors kids and the AP kids still do get that bump in their GPA when it's calculated in.
The old system had kids who were taking the honors and AP weighted the same, and we felt that that really wasn't fair given the amount of work that some AP student would put into a class.
Last week, ELCAT covered the latest planning board meeting where high school technology engineering teacher Mark Green introduced a brand new course called Community Action Project Learning. High school principal Gina Flanagan provides more detail to the school committee and explains why offering this course is so important.
This course serves two purposes. We've talked a lot about trying to integrate more technology into the high school, and one of the models that we've been really anxious to try to get going at the high school is a one-to-one learning environment where students have access to a laptop, they can take it home, and there's a real strong correlation with the learning that goes on in the classroom with home. And so we found this course to be a great venue to pilot that kind of environment. But essentially what it is that kids, they find an area of interest in their community, and they try to solve a challenge or a problem. So for example, it could be conservation is something that they're really interested in, and so within their local community they notice that some of the conservation areas are overgrown, and why is that, and how can we fix that? So they pick in all types of different areas. It could be healthcare, it could be education, it could be social justice, but the idea is for them to be facilitators of their own learning and then get involved within the community to make a difference, and that's what this course is really all about. Harvard University, Princeton University, Yale all have this exact class as part of requirement for their incoming freshmen. So it's that kind of class where it's seen in value even when these kids go to college. So,
moving on to another town meeting, the Board of Public Works, responding to information published in local media, expressed concern about a decision by the Board of Selectmen and interim town administrator, Greg Neffinger, to allocate $100,000 in casino impact mitigation funds for another study of the East Longmeadow Rotary.
I was surprised, as probably the other board members were, to see an article online today in the Springfield Republican regarding an application that was made to the Mass Gaming Commission for monies to conduct a traffic study of the Rotary in town. It was the first I'd seen of the application. I had heard that the application may have been submitted initially based on what I understand was that Mr. Neffinger, our interim town administrator, had met with the Board of Selectmen, had represented to the Board of Selectmen that town departments were in favor of this application. No town departments were consulted. We were not consulted. I did meet with Mr. Neffinger after the Board of Selectmen discussion, let him know that I wasn't certain that we'd feel that this was a great expenditure of the limited funds, because this is really a one-time pool of funding that the town has available to it to draw down to mitigate potentially impacts of the casino. And it doesn't need to be drawn down this year, it could be drawn down next year. We had a lengthy discussion, and we ultimately left it with that the application may or may not go in. And if it went in, it was going to be kept broad enough that maybe the funding could be applied to other projects around the town. And as I said, I saw the application for the first time this morning. And when I saw it, it was written specifically to do a traffic study of improving pedestrian access and traffic issues at the Rotary. And it may, it may be a valid project, but it may not be the most important projects and the highest priorities for the town to do town-wide. So just wanted to make the board aware of that.
Does he specifically have the authority to submit this?
I don't believe he has the authority to make decisions relative to the town roads. The Mass General Law that the town adopted by town meeting many years ago gives the Board of Public Works a number of responsibilities. You serve as water commissioners, you serve as sewer commissioners, you serve as park commissioners, you serve as cemetery commissioners if we had cemeteries, and road commissioners. I would say that the responsibility for making decisions regarding the town's roads rests with the Board of Public Works. The Board of Selectmen is the agency that negotiated with the casino developer and with the Mass Gaming Commission, so I think everything flows through the Board of Selectmen. But again, the decision that would impact a specific elected board, I would think originates at that elected board.
Superintendent Robert Parent says a mitigation committee of town department heads and officials was established 2 years ago to determine potential impacts from a casino in Springfield.
There was a committee formed. Most of the work was done prior to my arrival in town, because that's when studies were done and investments were, or negotiations took place, and there was a commitment, financial commitment made by the casino developer to the town, as they did make to several other towns. That committee probably met for the last time about 2 years ago. I did attend 1 or 2 of those committee meetings, and there were representatives from the Board of Selectmen's office. Angela Thorpe chaired the committee at that point. My understanding was that sometime after that, the chairman of the board at that time, Paul Federici, was appointed as the chairman of that committee, but the committee did not meet since that time. There were representatives from the school department, the fire department, the police department, planning department, anybody, council on aging, anybody that might be potentially impacted by the casino development that might have a need. And I might believe that the repaving Shaker Road is the greatest need, but I don't get to make that decision entirely by myself. So that was the reason for putting this interdepartment committee together, to ultimately put the best solution forward for the town. And no, that committee wasn't brought back together again. I did suggest it, the suggestion wasn't followed up on.
I don't see we're making another study of the Rotary, no matter who's paying for it, is going to change the facts. I mean, if you're going to change it, you need to take a land taking, and that's going to be way too costly.
Mayberry noted several intersections that could potentially be impacted by casino traffic.
What drove the decision for the Rotary as opposed to the Dwight Road intersection, or the Harkness intersection, or the Maple Shade and Elm intersection, or the Pease Road? There was just another accident just now, Pease Road and Shaker Road. Where are the people going to be coming from and going to and from?
Right.
I really would need some support information to even think that this was a reasonable thing to do at the time.
The board agreed to send a letter to the selectmen questioning the lack of participation by other boards in the application process.
So we're going to write a letter from the chairman,
certainly,
I believe, unless you guys disagree.
No.
I'll entertain any kind of motion you guys might have, or just further discussion, but I think we've got to involve town council, and you've got to involve, I mean, if we're supposed to be in charge of the streets and the Rotary and other people should be involved, we got to figure out how to undo this one as well, along with other things that we're aware of that are happening.
Yeah, I think it's very premature to even be spending any of this money until we really see how we're impacted, and it should be open to all departments and not just, you know, DPW.
And the real point to be made on the money is it's a one-time opportunity.
Yeah.
The communities, impacted communities, were generally allocated $100,000 for post sort of negotiation impacts. The money is the town's. The town has to apply for the money, but the money isn't going to be given to somebody else. But there's only $100,000. The only way that the town would ever get any more money out of a gaming deal at this point would be if it went to the Gaming Commission and made this overwhelming case that there were impacts that nobody envisioned when the negotiations occurred, that the town's now experiencing, and getting the state legislature and the Gaming Commission to fund using state money to mitigate those impacts.
Right.
But there's nothing else coming from the casino, there's nothing else coming from the Gaming Commission other than these monies that have been set aside.
In other news, we talk entertainment. St. Michael's players are preparing for their spring play, Cinderella. ELCAT sits down with director Adam Malberg to talk about the program and what audience members can expect.
So our show's in a little over a month, but right now they are starting to design and build the set for Cinderella. They're taking a lot of the old set pieces that we've had downstairs in the basement and from Mary Poppins, and they're recreating it from the Mary Poppins living room to a 18th century French style house, very old and dismal. The fireplace is going to be changed. So yeah, we do a lot of work. The whole cast itself, great group of kids. Friendships are being created every day as they come in. They are getting to know each other. They're loving the be on stage. Some of the kids, this is their first show, so they've never been on stage before. So this is their first chance to show their creative side, and it's kind of nice to see that. They're blossoming right in front of our eyes.
I play Cinderella.
And I'm the Prince Philip.
Well, I got the phone call from Allie Phillips, who's my friend, and she called me and she was trying to be professional. And I tried to be professional, but I was so happy it didn't work out, and so I kind of just collapsed in the middle of my kitchen, and my mom got really concerned.
I found out, I think I had just gotten home from basketball practice, and I was pretty tired, and I had like a lot of homework to do, so I heard about it, and it was pretty nice to hear because pretty much everything that day had just been bad news, homework, basketball practice, stuff to do, so it was really, really exciting.
Well, last year you've met the two stepsisters. Okay, that last year it was their first play with St. Michael's youth players. They actually were Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and just the fact that they came back, and not only did they come back, they really brought a new level of the stepsisters that I didn't even notice. Like for their callback for the audition, they dressed the part. I mean, one of the stepsisters came in with wearing a pillow because one of the stepsisters plays a chubbier version, and where the other one came in with her hair out of place, lipstick all over her teeth.
Me and my cousin who's playing Thelma Frumpkin, we watched the movie before we auditioned.
It's so hard to keep a straight face. They're so funny on stage, and they're amazing girls. So, yeah.
Day in and day out, those two, really surprised me. Kids who were afraid to talk on stage at the audition are now talking on stage, interacting with each other. The level keeps going up for every year, and we're proud to see all these kids come back. We love all the new faces.
Cinderella will be playing at St. Michael's Community Center on Summers Road, May 13th through 15th. For more information on tickets and other details, visit St. Michael's Players website.
It's time to dive into our weekly segment, Library Learning, where we let you know what events are coming up at the East Longmeadow Public Library.
Before we talk about upcoming events, let's take a look at the library's latest event, Local Author Panel, where the library invited 5 local authors to present their books and talk about their writing process. The program kicked off with Patricia Martin and Helene DeMontro Houston, co-authors of The Other Couch.
We wrote the book, The Other Couch, Discovering Women's Wisdom in Therapy. And it's the story of 36 inspirational, courageous women that Dr. Martin and I have treated over our combined 70-plus years of clinical practice.
So storytelling is one of the main themes of the book, The Other Couch, the importance of hearing people's stories and letting people talk to you about their stories. Another main theme and message that we hope to get out in our book, The Other Couch, is that mental health is inextricably woven into overall physical health and well-being. Our goal is to stamp out the stigma of mental health counseling and mental health issues.
Next up on the author panel was Michael Ponser, a United States District Court senior judge who also holds the title as a New York Times best-selling author for his book, The Hanging Judge.
In 2000, I drew a death penalty case. Some of you may remember it. It was United States versus Kristen Gilbert. It involved a nurse at the VA hospital in Leeds who was accused of murdering 4 of her patients and attempting to murder 3 others by giving them injections of epinephrine, which is a heart stimulant, which would cause a fatal heart arrhythmia. It was the first death penalty case in Massachusetts in about 50 years at that time. The process of taking the responsibility for a death penalty case is so profound that I wrestled with it a lot. Imagine yourself sitting up in front of a room and saying, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be picking a jury now, and we're going to be deciding whether that person should be deliberately killed. When I finished the case, I wrote an op-ed piece for the Globe a few months later, once it was clear that the case was completely over. But I wasn't satisfied that I had really managed to convey the sort of emotional climate of a trial and the moral weight that people feel when they're involved in one. So I wrote a book called The Hanging Judge. It got onto the New York Times bestseller list for 1 week in May of 2014, which means, my publisher tells me, I am from now on a New York Times best-selling author. It's like getting a tattoo. You can't get it away, and you're a New York Times best-selling author.
Audience members also enjoyed discussion from Beverly Bloomberg, author of The Last Hollywood Romance, and Michelle Barker, author of Mending Horse and A Difficult Boy.
My name is Beverly Bloomberg. I decided when I was 10 that I wanted to be a writer. Once I sold a script, I was no longer allowed to be an apprentice writer, so I kind of lost my job, but kind of had this little carrot dangling in front of me of another job. And eventually that's what happened. I got other jobs and worked on Welcome Back, Kotter, and then worked on Happy Days and worked on other shows that fortunately never saw airtime. I wrote a novel that was loosely based on my experiences there because it was such a weird world that I had to do some talk therapy and work through it.
I'm Michelle Barker, and I am the author of a couple of nonfiction local history books, but what I really want to talk about tonight are my 2 historical novels, A Difficult Boy and Mending Horses, and they are both set in New England in the 1830s. A Difficult Boy is about 2 boys who are indentured servants. And one of them is Irish, which is not a terribly popular thing to be if you're in New England in the 1830s. So immediately there's a conflict between these 2 characters and they cannot get along. But they pretty quickly realize they need to overcome their differences if they want to survive the situation that they're in, because their boss is the true enemy. And then the second book, Mending Horses, takes one of the characters from A Difficult Boy, and it takes him on a journey with a traveling circus. And he ends up being responsible for taking care of 6 dancing ponies. And these ponies have been mistreated by their trainer. And so he has to help these horses recover from the treatment that they've had and get them to trust again.
All the books mentioned at the program are available for residents to check out at the library. With April right around the corner, the library celebrates a new month with a new program. The library is introducing a drop-in group called Not Just Knitting. All are welcomed to bring their knitting, crochet, cross-stitch, or any other needlecraft project you're working on to share techniques, chat, and enjoy working on your project in a friendly, fun environment. The group will be meeting bi-weekly on Thursday mornings at 10 a.m.
We'll end tonight with 2 public service announcements for residents. First, dog licenses expire this week on March 31st. To purchase and renew your dog licenses, you can stop in at the town hall. For more information on fees and paperwork, visit the town's website at eastlongmeadowma.gov.
Lastly, an important reminder. April 12th is the annual town election, where residents will vote whether or not to pass the charter that will restructure the town's government. Make sure to check your mailbox, as the educational packets on the charter will be sent to residents' homes 2 weeks prior to the election.
Residents will also vote between the two final candidates who are running to serve on the Board of Selectmen. The finalists that will appear on the ballot are Kevin Manley and William Arment. Voting will take place on April 12th at Birchland Park Middle School from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Well, that will do it for us tonight on this edition of ELCAT News Update. Be sure to watch meetings on demand at our ELCAT YouTube channel, ELCAT 01028.
Follow us on Facebook and watch us on cable channel 191. I'm Rebecca Green.
And I'm Jake Brady. Until next time, good night.